This is my current workstation PC. It's used for gaming, video editing, audio editing, photo storing, anything at all which you can think of for a computer. It's an Intel i7. It's 11 years old, so I guess this is the first evolution of the i7. It's got 16 gig of 2133 memory. It's got 3 hard disks. It's got a failing fan, as you can see on the memory cooler. Stock processor cooler. It's a Maximus Genie 3 motherboard, 3 hard disks, and the RX 580 graphics card, which has been upgraded over time because I still like to bang out a few games of Counter-Strike every now and again. It's time for an upgrade.
Now, I've been building PCs for the last 20 or 30 years. My first one was an Intel Pentium 90, which dates back to about 1994, 95, something like that. Things have moved on considerably. When I built my last one, that machine I just showed you, the multimedia instruction set seemed like a pretty neat idea. No one had ever heard of M.2, cable management, water cooling, for example. So this is all new to me. I have spent the last year researching, watching videos, and hopefully the machine I'm going to build is going to suit me pretty well for the next 10 or 11 years. So what do we got? Well, we're starting off with the processor. I've decided to go with the Ryzen 9 after having watched more videos than I think it's probably healthy to watch. I've decided to go with this. I was all set to go with the 7 and pick up a second-hand one on eBay, but I thought the risks were probably too high. So I've gone with the 9. It was £100 more, but hopefully over the course of the life of the computer, that'll do me well. It's probably over the top for what I need, but if you're doing it, you might as well do it properly. Ryzen 9. To go with that, I've gone with the Rog Strix X570. I toyed with the idea of the E, but the only difference I can work out is Wi-Fi. I don't use Wi-Fi, everything's plugged into cables for more resilience and speed. So X570. The reasons I've gone with this, now this is based on what I've been able to glean from watchwatching videos again, is that it supports PCI Gen 4, which is going to give me much faster data transfer. It supports 2 M.2s, and it's got lots more USB connections, which you can never have too many. To power it all, I've gone with a Be Quiet Straight Power 11. Modular power supplies are a new thing to me as well. Again, it's new since I built my last one. I've gone with this one. Oh, it was upside down. Gone with this one because I've gone for a Be Quiet case, and I thought, well, why not? It seems to be there or thereabouts on the price. Silence is important to me because when I'm doing voiceover recording and things like that, I'm going to be recording it onto this machine. Obviously, I don't want any over-the-top noise if I can avoid it. Which brings us to the case. I've gone with the Be Quiet Silent Bass 802. Now, when I started researching this, I was about to pull the trigger on a Silent Bass 801, but then found that the model had been replaced. Probably by now, when you're watching this, all of this will have been replaced. But anyway, yes, Silent Bass 802. And to go along with that, and to stick with the Be Quiet theme, I've gone with a Pure Loop AOI, the 280. Part of the reason for getting the 280 was because it was available. At the moment, there is so much shortage of kit. The pandemic affecting the number of people building computers, I think. So, gone with this. Again, silence important to me. It looks pretty cool. It's got white LEDs in it. So yeah, Pure Loop AOI. Now, I've gone with the Balistix memory. I've got 16 gig of dual channel 3600 CL16. Part of the reason for getting this was, again, it was available. I got an alert set up on Amazon. I'd been waiting literally 4 or 5 months. All of a sudden I got an alert set it was available, pulled the trigger, bang, there it is. It's RGB. some of this stuff is RGB. It's not that important to me, but why not? And finally, I've got the Samsung 980 Pro M.2 drive. This is all new to me. Now I've got this because this is PCI Gen 4. The price suddenly dropped as I was about to pull the trigger on it when it was nearly 200 quid. All of a sudden it went down to about 160, so that's a bonus. Yeah, that's 1 terabyte, there you go. Now you might be thinking at this point, hang on a second, where's the graphics card? Graphics cards are just not available right now. So I'm not getting a new one. I'm going to salvage the RX 580 from my old computer, and as soon as I can find something suitable to replace it with, I will, and I'll upgrade that. I'll probably also bung another 16 gig of memory in it, just because when I'm rendering videos and things like that, I think it will probably speed that up. But there you go, that's the kit. None of this is familiar territory for me, so what I'm about to do is going to be a voyage of discovery for us both. And all of these things, actually, with the exception of the memory which I took out of the pack, I've not opened yet. So let's see what we can do. Right, the tools we're going to need. I've got a couple of different size screwdrivers. I've got some side cutters, again different sizes. I've got some needle nose pliers, and in case I get really frustrated, a really big hammer. Right, from what I can remember from the last time I did this, let's start with the motherboard. So, ooh, look at this. There you go. What else do we got in here? We've got some cables. Ooh, look at that. Don't know what that one is. It's very short. We've got some more cables. We've got some SATA cables. Oh, we've got some nice little cable ties, lovely. And I think those are the standoff screws for the M.2. We've got lots of stickers. A manual and a door hanger. I think if I hang on that door, I'm going to get into a lot of trouble. But anyway, there you go. So, oh, and a driver CD as well. Now, one of the things which I've seen on videos is I'm going to need to update the BIOS on this. So, let's take all of that out of there. I think we're a long way from being at that stage. I'll leave that in there for the moment. There we go. Instructions. So, I will use that as a base. It's nice and anti-static. There we go. So that's the motherboard. Just looking at it now, getting a grip. Right. Okay, CPU. Now, I've only ever had one AMD computer before, and that was an Athlon 64 about 20 years ago. Now, I understand things have moved on quite considerably. So, ooh, look at that. Right, one Ryzen 9 processor. Very exciting. I'm still amazed that they post something like this through the post, but there you go, something very expensive. Why is it so? Oh yeah, of course. There's a cooler in there as well, isn't there? Now I won't be using that cooler, obviously, so I'm going to leave that in the box. And let's put this on. Now, at least I do remember how you do this. So, we'll open up one Ryzen 9. Now, the way this works is there is little gold dots in the corner there, which slots in. There's a little marker on the motherboard here, a little arrow, and hopefully that will just slot in, which it does, nice and easily. Close the little arm, boom, processor fitted. That easy. Now, to install the memory, it's really very simple. Here is my first DIMM of DDR4 memory. Now, according to the manual, I need to use the A2 and B2 slots. Now if you were using a single stick of memory, you stick it just in this one here, dual like that, and then 4, obviously all 4. So really simple. You match the notch, which is on the DIMM, to the peg on the slot. You push it in and wait for the satisfying click, and then the catch closes on the memory. So that's the first one. Second one, exactly the same. We're going to go in that slot there, click, and the memory is installed. Okay, this next stage is a real voyage of discovery for me, because we're going to do the M.2 drive. Now, from what I've been able to learn online, I'm going to need to take off all of these heat shrouds. There's a fan under here to get to the slot. Now, the slot I'm going to use to get as much benefit as I can, again from what I've learned online, is that the nearer the M.2 drive is to the processor, the faster that data flow. So I'm going to be going for the one that's under here. So to get to that, there are 4 screws. There's this one here. There's this one here. And then that will come off. And then there's going to be this one and this one. That's heavier than it looks. Now the M.2 drive is so small. How can anything this small be that expensive? Anyway, really easy to install. However, what you need to know is how long that is, so that you get the post in the right place. There are, on this motherboard, appears to be 3 for different length M.2 drives. So this one takes us to the 3rd one there, and in the handily surprised little bag that I got with the motherboard are the posts and indeed a mounting screw. So let's open that up. Okay, so that goes just in there. Just need to do that thumb tight like that. The drive slots in. It's weird calling it a drive. I expect a drive to be a spinning disc, but there you go. So that goes into that slot. Push it in. It then sits there. It's kind of springy, but that means it's in correctly. Going to need one of the little mounting screws. Right, let's try and get this in. Don't want to cross thread that. There we go. Tighten that down. There we go. That's installed. Now, on the back of this heatsink is a pull-off for a thermal bit of tape. So I need to take off that front of that so that I can stick that on to try and shift some of the heat. So let's get that back in place. Tighten up these screws, and then fingers crossed that tape will be making good contact with the drive and shift some of the heat, which of course is why that was so heavy. But there you go. So that's back on. So now we can put this back on as well. If I can work out. There you go, it's a funny shape. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. Right, so they go back on there. A couple more screws. Okay, the motherboard is complete. Processor, memory, M.2 drive. There you go. Well, so far so good. Now this brings us to the industrial parts of the build, the big boxes. And I'm going to start with the case itself because it's taken up so much room. My last PC case I thought was quite big, and I have had a full height tower in the past, and I hadn't really appreciated in doing all of this the scale of the boxes or the cases. So let's open this up. Now I'm not entirely sure I've got enough space here. Let's move all this out of the way. Now, if you have a nice big studio or workbench to do this kind of stuff in, it really helps. I've got a kitchen table. So let's see if we can do this without breaking the entire place. There's the case. Now, I had actually already opened this up, just have a look, because it was one of the first bits of kit that I got, and quite frankly I wanted to look at the toys. So the difference between the 801 and the 802 is the increased airflow. Now I'm not going to be massively overclocking this machine, however there's no point in buying an older model, was there? And there was no difference in price. So I've got the 802, which is a big beast of a machine. Now, bearing in mind that there are a couple of other components I'd got that had got RGB on them, so I actually got the windowed case. Again, why not? It is huge. It nearly requires two people to move it. There's the case in all its glory. Gosh, it's huge, isn't it? Now, on the bottom, there are some feet. You need to put those on. That gives it a nice bit of breathing space at the bottom there to get airflow. On the back, there are my PCI slots. There's the gap for the I/O. There's the gap for the I/O. This case comes pre-installed with some Be Quiet Pure Wings fans. So there's the exhaust fan on the back. It's got a slot at the bottom, obviously, for the power supply, and it's got two vertical mount graphics card slots there as well. This case is particularly easy to open up. You push the button on the side there, and the side panel pops off and lifts out of the way. I'm going to lift that out of the way now. This particular side panel has huge amounts. It's about a centimetre thick there of acoustic treatment. Part of the reason for getting this case. However, I've probably defeated that by getting the window case, which obviously has no acoustic treatment on it. On the front, at the moment this has got the solid front on it. Obviously in the box you actually get the alternative, the free airflow hold case. There's ventilation at the side here, also just in there, and on the top there is a magnetically held on cover there and a vent to go in there. Again, on that, quite a decent bit of acoustic treatment. Let's spin that around. Oh, worth seeing on this side, by the way, fan controller on there. This obviously is to a certain degree pre-wired. All of the top connections, front panel connections are all there, and then there's a box of bits in there too. Mounting points here for SSDs. These are the back of the drive cages, so if you're going to put in, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hard disks, you could put in there. There's also more mounting space under here as well. So whatever I decide to do in the future, hopefully this case should support. Now, one of the other reasons for getting this one is if we take off this panel as well and put that out of the way, is inside the business end of this case. There's my fans. There's two more
Pure Wings fans at the front there. This tray here is the slide mount for the AI radiators. So the nice thing from what I have been able to learn from the videos is that once I've mounted my radiators on there, I can then just slide that in and out, which we will get to in a moment. But there you go, there's the case. Just found in here as well, in the box in the bottom, there is a drive cage to go into one of the drive slots. I might actually be using that because I might salvage one of the hard disks out of my old machine that's got a load of old project files on it. So that's in there. It comes with some rubber pads there, which will help the vibration suppression and hopefully improve the noise cancelling. Which brings us to the power supply. Now, as I said before, this is straight power 11. This is platinum rate, 80 plus platinum. This was, again, I researched the gold one, and then at the moment I was going to pull the trigger, this one suddenly became available. So again, I thought, well, why not? Let's have a look. One of the things which I've really noticed with all of this stuff is that when I built my last computer, everything was very industrial. It was, I think, for people building computers, there was nothing which was kind of retail packed. It didn't really ever feel that you were getting a premium product. All of this stuff is just so nicely packaged. A really glossy manual, cables, look at that, everything, braided cables, really nice. It's all labelled up, so hopefully I'll be able to know what I'm going to connect to what. Put that there. What have we got here? More well, obviously everything's cables. More cables. That's got a European plug on it as opposed to a UK one. Like that. Even more cables. Yeah, I think I'm going to be able to power everything I need. Some zippy ties and some mounting screws. This is the main event, the actual power supply. Right, that's out of the way. Bubble wrap. I can spend hours popping that later while Windows is installing. Right, there's the power supply. Ooh, look at that. See, this again, it just feels so good. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? But anyway, there's all the connections. As I said, when I built my last machine, modular power supplies just didn't exist. These are all nicely labelled. The drives, PCIe, the motherboard. So, should be no problem installing that. Now that, I think, needs to mount onto this puppy at the back, which it does, and all the holes match up. I'd be disappointed and surprised if it didn't, bearing in mind that all of this is Be Quiet stuff. That's more by coincidence than anything else, but lots of screws. And I'm going to offer this up and put it in, mainly so that I can then work out where everything else goes. So, screwdriver, one. Now these screws here are the kind of fixing plate screws that will then go into the back of the case. I'm guessing because they're thumb screws, and it then makes putting the power supply in and out a whole lot easier than if you were having to screw it with a screwdriver. Mainly tight
I'll just tighten them all up when everything's in place. That way, if I'd needed to move it, I had a bit of room to do it. So there we go. I'll do the opposite corners because it's habit from changing wheels on cars. Right, there we go. Back plate on. So now, hopefully, that will slide neatly into the back of our case, which it does. Excellent. Right, so those thumb screws do up. Probably no point in doing them up fully because I'll have to take them all out again, but there you go. And that one. There you go. Right, power supply in. What's next? I'm going to do the motherboard next. Okay, so motherboard installation time. This is going to be tricky from camera angles, but there you go. Now this case has got posts already installed in the ATX places for supporting the motherboard, which is great. The other advantage of using the motherboard I've chosen is that the I/O shield is actually pre-built in, so that's just going to slot into the I/O slot at the back, fix down, and hopefully that should be it. I'm sure I've forgotten something, but there you go. Right, so motherboard. Hang on a second, I know what I've forgotten. I'm going to need to change the back plate behind the processor for mounting my pure loop as opposed to the stock fan. Glad I remembered that. Okay, so this is completely unknown territory. My pure loop, AIO, water cooler. I've only ever used stock coolers with processors because I think the last time I built a computer, no one was doing any third party. There may have been, but I don't ever remember seeing or being available third party coolers. So right, here we are, here's the box. What have we got? We've got what I'm guessing is the radiator itself, which is attached to the block. Ooh. With a big sticker on it that says warning, take it off before you use it. Ooh, this is very exciting. Right, there's the radiator. Now, I have to say, when I ordered this, I didn't realise it would be quite such a Lego kit. So there are the fans that come with it. You also get, again, part of the reason why I went with this is it comes with a refilling kit. Now again, from research, I understand that about every 12 to 18 months you need to top up the coolant in an AIO because naturally there will be some evaporation. So anyway, it's there. Let's move it out of the way. I now need to fix the fans to the radiator. Now again, there are several ways you can do this. You can use push or pull, so the air going through the radiator, exhausting up, or sucking it in and going through that way. I've decided to use the pushing it up and out through the top of the case. Now on the fans, apparently there is a very helpful direction flow indicator. Yes, there is. Now apparently again, the simple way to remember this is the air flows from the open side of the fan through to where there's the cage and everything on the back. So it's going that way through, I think. That way through. So I'm going to be mounting my fans like that, so that both of them are pushing the air through the radiator and that will exhaust through the top of the case. So far it's going remarkably well. Right, now the thing I'm trying to work out on this is, let's take off a bit of sticky wire, because again, no one had ever heard of cable management when I last built a computer, but this time I'm trying to make it as neat and tidy as possible. So, first fan there, move the block out of the way. I'm going to need to fix the fan on, hopefully in here. Oh, loads of screws. Now I did actually buy some thermal paste, some Be Quiet thermal paste, but you do actually get some with this kit. So if you're thinking, oh, mustn't forget to get thermal paste, you do get some. And this is the other thing which I really need, is the mounting kits. Now you do get an Intel mounting kit, and you get the AMD one, which is cunningly labelled AMD. So I'm going to need to take off the kit that's already on there for the stock cooler and replace it with this one. I may have to read the instruction manual. Oh no, I'm sorry. Anyway, more of that in a sec. Second fan. Now, I'm not sure where I'm going to probably do that. See, the fan header is on the back of the back plate of the case. So, open these up. Lots of screws. Oh, these are really simple. That's good. Do that. Not going to fully tighten them yet, just in case I need a bit of wiggle room. First one. Okay, the fans are installed. Well, that was remarkably easy. And they spin. Right. Okay, so we're going to do the mounting kit for the AIO. Now, the back plate is going to be the same, but these retaining, or these plastic things here that the stock cooler goes onto, need to come off, and the kit that you get with the AIO needs to go on. Now, one of the tricks which I've learned is if you take all of these off in one go, you lose the back plate off the back of the motherboard, and you then have to try and match it up. So if you just do one side at a time, you don't then have to chase around after that back plate. Also, keep the bits, because if at some point in the future you want to sell the motherboard, you're going to need that mounting kit in case somebody else wants to use the stock cooler. So let's open up the bag. Now in here are the mounting brackets themselves, the standoffs and the screws, and some washers. So I need, at this point, a couple of standoffs and a couple of washers. Now the instructions are actually quite simple. The book, predictably enough, is daunting because it's in about 18 different languages. So don't worry and think, oh gosh, this is really hard. it's not. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount that. Now it's a little bit unclear, and they don't actually mention the washers in there. So one standoff, I'm going to put the washer between the screw and the standoff. We'll do it that way. It is cunningly labelled on that mounting bracket as to which screw hole you need. It's the outer of the two, and if I'd read that, I wouldn't have done that. There you go. There you go, so that's nice and solid on there, and obviously fixed into the back plate, which I haven't had to then hold on the back of the motherboard. So thank you, whichever video I watched, that has saved some grief. Oh, put that there. Stand off. Screw one. Screw two. It's amazing, isn't it? The second one's almost that much easier. One, two. And there you go. That's, and I'm just going to check that I haven't screwed it into the dining room table, and the back plate is still, and it is, as if by magic, that back plate is still there. That's good. So now I think the motherboard's complete. Okay, next, this is the top shelf which slides out from the case. So what I'm going to do is mount the radiators to this, and then I can slide that back in place. And I think that's probably a sensible way to do it. Anyway, right, so here is my AIO. I need to try and work out which way round it's going to orientate in the case. So this is the back end, which is going to be where all the IOs on the motherboard are. So I think I'm going to be that way round. Now, because the exhaust on the top of the case is mainly at this end, I'm going to mount the radiator there as opposed to there, because that would just be wasted otherwise. So there is where it goes. I hope that makes sense. So what I need to do now is, and I'm beginning to get a fair few now screws lying around, so I need to now mount that onto there, which, as if by magic, all of the screw holes line up. That is good and quite unexpected. Right, let's do one, and then the rest of them can all fit into place. Well done, be quiet. You get full marks for the number of screws and how easy this has been, because I have to say, out of the whole of the build that I was attempting, and bearing in mind there's a long way to go, this was the bit I was most nervous about because I'd never done it before. So if we fix this one in here. Now the only problem with everything being so stylishly black, which it is, and that again is pure coincidence rather than by design, is it actually makes it quite tricky to see unless you've got really good light, and this light isn't the best because it's directly from overhead. It actually makes it really hard to see, especially if you're an old git whose eyesight's failing them. Right, That's 2, so they're well in place now. Let's do one down here. These are meant to be magnetic tip screwdrivers, but for some reason they're not holding the screws. There you go. Ah! There we go. Now the only thing which I've not seen so far is the mounting screws for the motherboard into the case, which is slightly concerning. I was expecting quite a large pack of screws with that, and I don't know where they are. I don't want to cross thread that. Where is it? Is that the right screw? Not convinced. Let's try another one. That's better. Gosh, I need a ratchet screwdriver. There we go. 6 screws, radiator and AIO all together on its slidey plate thingy, which I hope will now go back nicely into the case. Oh, it's even got the logo on the right side. I must have done something right. Right, what's next? Okay, several things have just happened. One, I had to get a cup of coffee. No one ever mentions when building that you need really strong coffee, so I've got a good coffee. Good. Secondly, I found my magnetic screwdriver. That could be useful. Thirdly, after much searching, there was no bag of fixing screws in the Strix motherboard case. Naughty ASUS. That's very bad. Check everything's there when you open it. I have no idea. It was a brand new sealed box. You watch me open it, no mounting screws. Now you know that box of stuff which you don't ever quite throw away because it will be useful one day. Well, I have managed to find from a previous build, so these are at least 11 years old, a load of fixing screws. So I can now fix the motherboard into the case. Good. Okay, hopefully that motherboard is in the right place. I haven't fixed it in yet because I want to offer this up and see whether or not I have a fan fouling issue, in which case there will be much wailing and gnashing of teeth. There is a fan fouling issue. Urgh. Right. So I'm going to have to shift the fans along because there is no other way. Curses. Actually, I've had another idea. Due to the cunningness of the slidey thing design, if I just move these screws, I should be able to slide it along just a couple of inches that will clear it. So let's see whether that works. This never happens to Linus, does it? Now, is that going to be enough clearance? Let's just offer it up and see. And if it is, I can stop gnashing teeth and wailing and fix it in. Yay! I think I'm going to be right. There you go. So at that point I'm still getting the benefit of the airflow going up and out of this exhaust, but I have now managed to avoid that. That's good. Right, So I can fix this in situ and then take it out and do the rest of the screws. All is well. There we go. So now, hopefully, that will slot in quite happily, no fouling. Good. Right, now that's in, I can hopefully, using my salvaged screws, naughty Asus. Sorry, I've always had I've always used Asus products. I've loved the monitors, and I've loved obviously the Maximus Gene motherboard. I've got a laptop from them as well. So this is the first time I've had anything other than absolutely spot on. So hopefully everything will be all right. At least I've got other bits lying around I've been able to use. There you go. Right. And at least no one's changed the international standard of threads for motherboard in the last 11 years. Saying that, if I had got the right ones, they'd have probably been black and I wouldn't have been able to see the damn things, but there you go. Everything is very black in here. I didn't do that deliberately, but it is very black. I think there are flashing lights though. Obviously RGB here, there's some RGB in that, and the block has got white lights in it, so it might look alright. Right, let's do one more. Come on, screws. Now obviously the only thing which isn't in there yet is the graphics card, so I'm going to need to salvage that out of my existing machine, and because there is still some stuff I'm going to do on it, I'm going to need to put back. I've got the old Sapphire Pro X1950 that came out of it, so I assume the operating system is going to go, what the hell is going on there? But there you go. Right, that's solidly fixed on all its mounting points now. It's good. So what do we need to do now? We need to put in the block for that. The fixing screws for that are already a part of the block. On the bottom is the peel that says, warning, please tear off before you use it. I'll now tear that off. Actually I won't, just because... Where's my thermal paste? There you go. Now as I mentioned, the AIO comes with some thermal paste. Now the famous use the amount of a pea, or the size of a pea, is going to be very, very easy to work out with this, because you only get about the size of a pea in that. So a nice syringe in the middle of the thing, put my thermal paste. It was all nice and shiny until I got to it. There you go. So that's my thermal paste, the size of a pea, in the middle of the processor. I understand the theory is that when you apply the pressure by screwing down this, it then spreads it out evenly. Oh, lovely shiny. It spreads it out evenly over that. Now, very nicely, me Be Quiet logo. This logo, by the way, comes off and reorientates. If you want to take it off, turn it round to match whatever your build's going to look like, you can. But very fortunately, mine is the right way around. So there you go. Screw that in. And to just hold it, get the other one in, tighten it up a bit, go to the other side. You don't want to tighten it down all on one side, just keep going, couple of turns, go back to the other side, couple of turns, keep the pressure even as it goes down. Gotta say, it feels remarkably solid in there. Aside from having no screws for the motherboard, naughty aces. And the issue with the fans, it's all gone remarkably well. The only thing, of course, which I haven't done yet is actually wire anything up and connect it. So that will be the next challenge. But in terms of kit in box, other than the graphics card, which I'll have to go and get in a sec, I think we're there. Remarkable. Okay, so supplied with it is a SATA power connector splitter which runs the pump and the LEDs on the block. So that just requires a bit of SATA power. I think we're at the point now where I need to start actually wiring some of this up, and then I can do the cable management in a bit. There are a lot of wires. Now I'm not going to be using all of these because I haven't got loads of accessories, and because this is the first build I've done in ever that doesn't have a DVD or CD ROM, so everything's going to be going via USB. So all of that to do, I'm going to stand the case up now so you get a better view inside. Okay, so this is where we're at. Everything's done other than the cabling now, and obviously the graphics card, which I need to do in a sec. So I think what I'm going to do is take off some of the covers to make getting to the power supply that bit easier. Now I've got no idea actually how you do this because I've not actually read the manual. I don't know whether they just clip off. Oh, they do. Right, so we can get those off. These again are covered in underneath. No, they're not. I thought they were covered in acoustic treatment, but they're not. Right, so there's the power supply. That's the hard disk cage. That's where some of these cables are going to come up or around out of the back. Let's spin it round and have a look. Okay, so we're going to connect the fans. Now, there are 3 fans already pre-installed in the case, which are connected on there. The 2 fans as part of the AIO are connected into this supplied adapter, which goes in there. It can only go in one way. There are locator lugs to go in, so that goes in there. And then that, hopefully, will connect quite simply onto there. Job done. Right. Well, that was easy. Part of me thinks that was too easy. Oh well, right. So now I've got my my pump and my ARI 8.0 water block, which needs some SATA power. Let's keep this nice and neat on this side. The pump one is longer. I didn't think of that, did they? Right, the pump one goes to there. That one I'll zippy tie on so that it stays looking nice and neat. He can come round there. Alright, that looks okay. So we need some SATA power. So, here's some SATA power. Hard disk DVD, SATA power, hard disk DVD. Now on the modular power supply, the huge advantage is that I'm not going to have to deal with 5 million miles of cable. I only use the ones that I need. Now this one is obviously SATA power. if I use this one, it means I can use the AIO, and then when I put in the physical hard disk in there, then I can use the same one for that, so that'll keep that nice and neat. So now I think this is where actually, if I whip the power supply out of the back, I will be able to make my life a bit easier by being able to do some of the connections outside of the case. So we whip that down there. Out slides the power supply with its handy mount. Now, hopefully this will be long enough. Drives, I'm assuming this connects to drives. Let's do it at the bottom, because I think that would then make life easier if I had things in the future. So, move those out of the way, come through there. Lots of lovely SATA power. I will use the first one on the chain. And assuming I get it the right way around, because it will only go one way. Ha! Job done! Yay! Right, what else have we got? Oh yeah, we've got a lot of connections to the motherboard to do. So, all of these things here are things like the USB 3 connections, USB 2 connections, hard disk activity lights, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Don't know what that one is. That was very exciting looking. Oh well, I might have to read the motherboard instructions. These ones are all of the LED lights. I really would have thought that by now someone would have worked out a way of doing that as one plug rather than lots of different ones. I've never seen a motherboard that doesn't have pretty much the same layout, so why are they all separate and a pain in the backside? Audio connections to the front, I am going to use that. I know some people don't bother connecting the audio connections, but actually I probably will, even though I might use the onboard audio for some things, but I'm going to be using, I've got a Rog Delta headset for gaming, and I've got a Roland USB professional sound interface for doing some of my work. So, but I will still bother connecting that. It would be daft not to. PWM cable connects to the motherboard, fan controller. Let's whack in through there. I'll check from the other side and see whether or not that's in a convenient place. Almost entirely not. I'm going to need to get the map for the motherboard. Reading instruction books. I'm shocked at myself, quite honestly. However, it could save a lot of effort. Alright, here's the handy motherboard layout. So it'll tell us where the things are. I'm not sure there's many fan headers on this. So, we need are there any? Oh, they're all down the bottom, right. So all of the fan thingies at the top. Okay, so we're going to connect the fan controller on the back of the case to the motherboard. Now that's this cable here. There are many connection points for this, so I'm going to choose this one here, which is a chassis fan connector. I think this is fan connector 2, but that goes nice and neatly, exactly the right place. Virtually no cables going through there. Nice. Now all of the other fans, the ones from the AIO and the case, are all connected to that fan connector, so that's pretty good. My next connection I'm going to do is my big ATX one. Now I'm going to connect the motherboard end first, because I think that's going to allow me to get this neater. So the cable supplied is labelled ATX connector at that end. This end it's not labelled at all. Okay, so we're going to come through that middle one there. This obviously is split, this ATX connector into the two. It's cunningly labelled with an arrow there, so you know which way they go together. Up there. It will only go in one way, which is quite handy. It's just seeing the black cable against the black motherboard in a black case is slightly tricky. However, that's now in, and we can start making that look a little bit neater. There we go. That looks alright. Okay, next we're going to do the CPU power, which is right at the top here. Right at the top here. It's very inconvenient to get to. However, there is quite a lot of space here for this cable to go over the top. See it in there. There you go. Actually, I'm being daft. If I take my handy thingy out of the way, that gives me loads more room. There you go, should have done that to start with. Right, makes it easier to put that over the top as well. Okay, let's do some of these front panel connectors now. So I've got my USB 3. Now the USB 3 connector is right down at the bottom on this row here, which is quite inconvenient in terms of getting it. So I'm going to have to come out through this grommet over here and run along the bottom. Not the neatest, I don't think. I'll see whether I can do anything about that in a sec. Is that in? It was apparently. There you go, right. Then we have got the HD audio connector, which I suspect is along the bottom there as well. I am having to refer to the manual for these. Right, front panel audio is this one right down on this side of the thing. Again, I'm going to have to go through the bottom here and run along. I can't see any other way of doing that neatly. It's the last one across. Again, that will only go on one way. Like that. I wonder if that would go up from behind. It might do. Let's try. Yes, it will. That'll be neater. Right. There you go, much better. Right, I found out what my funky cable is for. It's the USB 3.2 connector. So that needs to go in there. There you go. So that one's there. That's nice and easily neat. Good. I think I can put my AIO back in now. I don't think I'm going to be using anything else
on the top there. Might well be, but thanks to the funky shelf, I can always take it out again. Very good. Right. Right, next up I'm going to put the power supply in the case, because then I can start connecting things up and neatening the cables. Obviously I still do need to go and salvage my RX 5800 or 580 from my other PC, which I will do in a sec, but let's get this in. The modular power supply really is a major step forward, because in terms of lack of clutter and making the cable management easier, it's an evolution. So everything now, I need to do the front panel connectors, which can come easily through that gap. I'll do those in a sec. That's all there, so I'm going to put my power supply in there. I was thinking it's going in hard, but it's actually on rubber mounts in there, which make the fit quite tight, presumably because that makes the isolation for sound that much better. Very impressive. I must say, I can't stress enough the feel of the build quality of everything is just a million miles from where everything in my last build was. And everything in that was bought as kind of the best you could get at the time. So we need to know which of these does what. Well, they're actually labelled. You can see on there. Power switch, reset switch, hard disk LED, power left, power plus and power minus. So now we just need to work out which one goes on where. Now they are all labelled, but it's so hard to see because my eyes are rubbish. Let's do the power LED plus and minus first, because they're flapping around uselessly. Power is the top right of this cluster of stuff down here. So we'll look for the power right. And the power minus. If I try and bunch them together, it might make life easier. We'll see. Yay! It's on. Right. Now let's find the minus. As soon as you've got the first one on, it makes it easier. Right, what have we got to do now? Let's do the hard disk activity light. Why not? Okay, hard disk activity is cunningly labelled plus and minus, and that should go on directly underneath, which it does. So all we've got left is the power switch and the reset switch. Both of those are quite important. Power button is the top right, so let's get that on. Gosh, and that means that I've laid it hard for myself to try and find. In fact, I'll take that off. Let's do the reset switch first, because we'll be able to see the pins. Don't want to get them the wrong way around, otherwise that would get very confusing. Ah, I've just pulled off my hard disk light. There you go. Right. Maybe it's all done to make it deliberately tricky,
there you go. They're in. Let's pull you back through. That can be quite neat under there. Excellent. So, front panel's done. I'm annoyed by this USB lead. It's a real shame. Never mind. Okay, so now we appear to be there. I'm going to have fun with this cable management, I can tell. Okay, it's time for the graphics card. I've just been to salvage my RX 580 from my old computer. I've put back in it one of the Radeon 1950 Pros, I think it is. So currently it's complaining frantically. Now, this is going to ruin my black theme build now. Anyway, right, let's bung it in. I'm going to bung it in this slot here, so I need to work out which one of these. I'm going to need to take out two, aren't I? So I'll take out two of these covers. Oh, these are thumb screws. That makes life easier. That's one. And that's the other one. Hopefully I've got the right. Yay! Gosh, that slots in there far easier than it did my last one. But there you go. Right, let's put one of the screws, both of the screws back in. There's probably loads of people now going, "What? Why are you putting that graphics card in there?" Well, A, it's budget. Having spent more on the processor than I'd planned, I just don't have any spare money. Secondly, you can't get them. Graphics cards just are not available. So if you're watching this back on YouTube in about 15 years time, you'll be thinking, what? But in the middle of the pandemic, everything suddenly went crazy. Computer bits were just not available, probably down to Far East suppliers issues and stuff like that. The prices went nuts. New products were being launched, or are being launched constantly, but I can't justify spending another £1,000 or so on a graphics card. I was getting, with this card, over 200 frames per second on Counter-Strike in the machine I was running. At the end of the day, if I get a similar performance out of this, I'll be happy. Obviously, I hope it's going to be far better, but the card is great. It does everything I want. I think from a productivity point of view, video editing and stuff like that, I will benefit from getting a more beefy card in the future, but I can save up and do that. I've kind of spent almost as much as possible on all of the other components, so as soon as I can update that, I will. Right, I need to power it. Okay, here we are. Due to the wonders of the modular power supply, I've found the right cable. It's cunningly labelled VGA1. So it should just be a case of plugging it in. There's a 3 there. There's going to be one flapping around, unfortunately, and an 8 pin in that one. There we go. Right, let's try and work out how we're going to do this neatly. I think it's just going to be round to the side and through that grommet. Or maybe underneath. Try and tuck that in there. Right, now I need to bung that into the back of my power supply. Right, power's connected.
So now if I snap my blanking plates in, there was really no benefit in taking those off from what I was doing. But I learned that now. So hopefully they'll snap back in quite easily. Otherwise that hammer which I got ready at the start could come in useful. Ah, who knew? Right, that's that one. There you go, that looks quite neat. Right, so I need to sort these cables out. Which brings us to cable management. So, after all that work at the front, this is what we've got at the back. Now I need to sort this out because even though all of this will be hidden behind the side panel, I'm not happy with that. So, let's tie some of this down. Now I am going to be putting in here at a later date a 2.5 inch SSD, so that I need to keep that clear. I don't want to tie any of that down onto there. So let's see where we can go with some of this stuff. Right, that fan and those can go down there. Some of this stuff I think just tying it all together with some zippy ties will probably do the job. Right, unfortunately a whole load of zippy ties came with the kit, or came with, so we can tie some of this down. Now I've also found that there are quite a few things, in fact there's a few things which I haven't connected, which I've never seen in any of the videos I've been watching on YouTube over the past year or so. I've never seen anyone connecting things like the thermal sensors. Now, I'm not really sure, obviously I know what the thermal sensor does, but I'm not really sure why nobody else is connecting them. But I might just plug them in if it's not going to make it too messy, because surely if they supply them, then there's a point to them. You've got to make sure that there's enough clearance so that you're going to get the side panel on. Now, the way this case is designed, it actually comes out, so there is actually a fair bit of clearance behind there for everything to fit in. But depending on how much cable work you've got on this side of the case, you do have to be aware of the clearance, especially with some of these thicker cables that have got a mind of their own in terms of where they're going to go behind here. Thank goodness for these fixing points. Again, in cases like the last one which I used, there were no fixing points. Cable management was nothing. Nobody did it. Well, maybe they did, but certainly it was not made easy. If you bought a pre-made machine from some like Dell or HP or something, everything inside was custom built cables, custom built lengths that would obviously be very neat, very tidy. But for me and my friends who were just building systems to do a job at the time, there was no desire really to make it all neat. It was just close the box and get working. Okay, so the other side of the case is on. It looks pretty neat, I have to say. There's a couple of things which I need to tidy up. The USB 2 cable, which is really winding me up, this one. I don't know why it won't go anywhere else, but it is. And also the power for this graphics card, again, I need to neaten that up. Other than that, it's all pretty good. I need to power it up and connect some internet to it. And now, bearing in mind that this is all from scratch, I'm going to do the BIOS update for the motherboard, because I'm not going to change anything about the way the machine is working, because, well, it isn't working. So let's find a monitor, tidy this place up and connect it up. Alright, so I've gone and got a monitor, got a keyboard, got a mouse. I've plugged it in, but I've not switched it on. As you can see, I've already got the ROG things going there. So here we go. This is genuinely the first time I've pushed the power button. Let's see, does it work? Yeah! Look at that. It works. I don't know why I sound so surprised. I shouldn't sound so surprised. But anyway, it works. Okay, let's bring the monitor back and see what we can see, if anything. Now, I've never... Yay! Right, we've got some BIOS. So it posts. This is a major win. Now, again, a lot of this is from memory of watching videos. So my memory is showing it's 266 and 16 gigs. So it's got the right amount of memory. However, I need to enable the XMP, don't I? So, okay, I've switched it into the easy mode now, which seems to do everything that you need to do. I've switched the, well, ASUS call it the DOCP or XMP profile now, so it's registered the DDR4 3603 CL16 memory. It's recognised those are in there, which is good. It's showing me everything I need to know: the fan volts, fan temperature or fan speed. These spinning things down here are telling me what the fans are doing. You can set the fan profile there. I'll do all of that later. So, at the moment, Ryzen 9, yeah, 12 cores, 16 gigs of memory, running the 3603. Everything seems to be what we want. So I will F10 it and save it. And that will completely confuse it now because it doesn't have an operating system. However, now I'm doing the BIOS update. It's very simple. I've downloaded the BIOS. Now, according to ASUS's website, there was meant to be a automatic, it connects to the internet and does it all for you job. However, no matter what I tried, it didn't work. So I've downloaded BIOS onto a USB stick and I'm doing it manually. It was all very simple. It's just taking its time. I think it's time for a cup of tea. Oh my gosh, right, it has, it's recognised the boot USB. Now I've never installed Windows from a USB. It's always been off of a DVD. So it's recognised everything that I want in there, which is good. Install now. Now I downloaded the latest installer from Microsoft yesterday, so fingers crossed it won't need too much updating when I reach that stage. But let's see, I'll find some internet lying around here soon as well and we'll connect it. Okay, Windows is now installing, so it's going to be interesting to see how much quicker it is using the M.2 drive and also the USB kit or the stick to install it. So let's see, the green bar is, it's moving slowly. Alright, now if this is actually doing what it pretends to be doing, that is fast. I mean really fast. It used to be that you'd install Windows from the DVD, go away and eat dinner, come back and it was 50% done. Things seem to have moved on. Okay, Windows is installed and working. I'm now just clicking on the yes button quite a lot. It's detected that it wants to install the Armoury Crate Aura Creator. I've said yes, and it's doing that. I'm not sure what it's doing now, but the red bar seems to have stopped moving. After that, it's
installed quite a lot of things, and it said it wants a restart, so I'll do that as soon as it's finished doing this. Now, I've been through all of the Windows setup. The thing which I'm quite surprised at is that it isn't bleating at me to do a million updates. So clearly downloading the latest version of Windows installer has paid dividends. It all appears to be working. Let's have a look at the task manager and see what is going on. I've got the fabled Cinebench here, so let's run it and see what it does. I can't remember what the score for my last machine was, but it was not great. Wow! The speed of it. It took about 20 minutes to run on my old machine. Gosh, look at that. So there we are, we're right up with 6,768. I don't know if it's a good score, but it's near the top and it's showing it's better than a Threadripper. It's a win. So there we go, it's taken most of the day to do it. Everything is now operational. It's all running fine. To give you an idea, my old PC took, bearing in mind that I acknowledged there were some problems with it, but from the moment you press the power button to the moment that everything was sorted and the discs were spinning at not 100% was around about 18 minutes. This started up entirely in under 10 seconds. So there's a bit of a performance improvement. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this build today. It's been a bit of an epic task, I have to say, but I think it's worth it in the long run. Let me know what you think below. What have I missed? What have I done wrong? What should I have bought? All the usual stuff. Let me know. And yeah, thanks. Oh, I need to do the peel on the side panel, don't I? Let's put that on. Is it going to come off in one go? Yeah!